Hey everybody, hi, it's Becky from PowerToolsWithThread.com and Power Tools with Thread YouTube channel. I want to thank Grace for inviting me to be part of this year's Spring Fling, and the theme is Rooted, Bloom, and Flourish. One of the things I love to do on my channel is to streamline my quilting and make my sewing room as efficient as possible. And that's how I flourish in my quilting studio. I like to use the long arm to also put the binding on the quilt while it is still on the long arm. I just ran a pantograph pattern across this cute little panel right here, and I need to get the binding on it. And I don't want to have stacks of quilts with binding waiting to be put on. So I'm going to take care of putting this on right now. It's very easy to put a binding on while it's on the long arm, and it is so efficient because you are not going to be manhandling and wrangling a quilt while you're sitting at a domestic machine. It just makes it so much easier. To do this process, I have 2.5-inch strips, 4 of them sewn end to end on a diagonal seam, just like I would any other quilt binding. And there's a couple of different ways you can do this. You can start in the center of the quilt and work your way down, all the way down both sides and then to the bottom. Or you can start on a side like we like to do, and you can come up and all the way across and down and over and then back up, just like on a regular domestic machine. For this demonstration, I'm going to go ahead and start in the center and go out both sides and then come down, just because I don't want to have to be rolling the quilt back and forth multiple times like you would have to do if you were going to go all the way around that direction. I do not recommend using this start in the center method if you're going to have a show quilt, because the folded miters will be going a different direction. And if that matters to you, then you would not want to start in the middle. You'd want to start on the side so that your folds all go the same way. Okay, so I've got my binding here ready to go. The only thing you really need to do is find center. And to do that, it does not matter how much binding you have. And if you've got a king size quilt, you definitely want to put this on while it's on the long arm. If you are a long armor for a business, you might find this to be an added option for you to offer another service to your customer so that you put the binding on for them, and that'll help you with your resources. To make this a little bit easier, you may want to install the ruler base for the machine. I have the Grace Canique 21X Elite, and this is the ruler base for this machine. It's very simple to put on, and it only takes a second because there's just one little screw down here. You just simply slide the ruler base underneath the hopping foot right into place, and then there is one screw to put up underneath. And it's nice and big, and it's not real difficult. And within just 15 seconds, the ruler base is on. Very handy to do. I have a quilting ruler right here. And by quilting ruler, I mean this is a ruler that you would use to do ruler work on the quilt. It's a standard stitch in the ditch ruler. And I have put washi tape on the back of it. It will keep me straight along the top edge of the quilt. So I'm going to move the head of the machine to center, and I'm going to take my binding, and I'm just going to do like we always would and put the binding up at the top edge of the quilt. When you do this method, you do not even need to pin it unless you want to. But I usually don't need to do that. It pretty much stays in place just like you like. So I'm just going to lay this out like this, and I need to pull up my bobbin thread. I'm working outside of the QCT5 Pro software, so I can use the buttons on the screen or on the handles. I'm going to go into precise mode, and I'm at 10 stitches per inch. And I'm going to put the back of the hopping foot against the back edge of the quilt and the back edge of the binding. Okay, I'm just going to place this washi tape right up to the edge of the quilt. The little feet at the top of the ruler base are right on the edge of the quilt, and my fingers are acting like pins. I'm just going to go 3 or 4 inches. The ruler is giving me an exact 1/4 inch seam. I'm going to stop the edge of the foot when the edge of the hopping foot reaches the edge of the quilt top. I don't need to cut my thread. I'm just going to push this out of the way a little bit. And now I'm ready to do my miter. I'm just going to fold it up like I would normally and fold it back down over the top of my fingers. And just lay this down right along the edge. I'm going to bring it back in. I don't worry about cutting the threads because I'm going to also use the weight of the quilt on the frame to trim the quilt while it is on the frame. I like to start about 3/8 of an inch down, and I'm going to go backwards first. And I don't need the ruler when I'm doing this vertically because I can see the edge pretty easily. The ruler base table edge right down here has stopped me. I'm going to come over to the side and do a little lock stitch. And then I'm going to back up and pull my bobbin thread. Okay, now I'm going to come over here, do the same thing. Lay that out like I like it. All right, I'm ready to move it aside. Okay, I'm going to fold my miter fold up and down. And lay the binding down straight down the edge of the quilt. Come back on. I'm going to start just below and go backwards first and then come forward. Okay, the edge of the ruler base has gotten me as far as it can go. I'm going to come off the side, and I'm not going to cut my thread. I'm just going to put the needle down, and I'm going to advance the quilt. Okay. I'm ready to start again. I'm going to start right on top of the stitches that I just finished, about 3 or 4 stitches on top of them. do a little lock right there. Come over to the other side. You don't even have to cut your threads because you will trim them off when you're finished. Do a little lock stitch. I've gotten as far as I can. I'm going to do a little lock and put the needle down and advance the quilt. You can see how quickly this is going. It is such an easy and fun thing to do. You just pull it straight toward you. Keep the outer edge of the hopping foot on the edge of the quilt top. All done. Drop the needle and advance the quilt. Okay, I'm getting ready to come down here. I'm going to stop the hopping foot 1/4 inch away, just like you would if you were sewing on a domestic. Just push it out of the way, make your miter fold, and crease it with your fingers, and then fold this over. And I'm going to leave probably about 10 inches of space here in the middle of the quilt so that I can finish the diagonal seam binding on the domestic machine. I'll come over to about here. Little lock. Okay, and pull up my bobbin. That's it. Okay, so in just a matter of minutes, I have installed the binding onto the quilt top. and it's ready to be finished over at the Domestic. Now, one of the things I do love to do is to go ahead and trim the quilt while it is still on the frame. I want to use the tension that the frame provides to make it really easy to cut this off. I do not cut the bottom of the quilt until the very last. So what I'll do is I come in from the side right over here. I'm going to trim directly next to the quilt top and cut off any loose strings or threads. Come in from over here, pardon my back. All right. This is so nice when you've got a really large quilt to be able to do this. Now you don't have to try to put together multiple rotary mats to be able to cut it that way. You don't have to find a great big cutting surface. You don't have to do all kinds of acrobatics to try to get this straight and nice. This can be done on a quilt that is not square, which happens. We all know that. Got a little far there. Okay. As you can tell, a super sharp pair of scissors is definitely your friend. And I am going to cut all the way across the top of the quilt. There we go. Don't want to cut into that binding. Okay. So now the quilt has been cut free from the take-up rail. I've loosened it up. And I'm going to use the weight of the quilt, throw it over the take-up rail, and use that to hold it straight for me so I can cut off the bottom. Don't cut your tails off. And that's it. All right, so in just a matter of minutes, I've been able to attach the binding to this quilt and it is ready to go. Let me get up close and show you what this looks like. You can see I've got a perfect 1/4 inch seam down the side. It's nice and clean on the back. And it's going to turn out just beautiful. Now you're really flourishing in your sewing room. So I hope you enjoyed this demonstration. Thank you so much for joining me. Thank you, Grace, for having me here, and we will talk to you soon. You guys go sew something. Bye.